After the 2024 election, I made a video about, who would win in 2028. What would a candidate might look like? Now, of course, I can't make any names and, point to specific names who I think are going to be a surefire win because it is so down the road. I did talk about the policies that it would take and the approach, the campaign approach it would take. And I noted something differently that, gone is the days of Obama, 2010s intersectionality politics where, you're able to build a coalition of people who share something in common, especially with regards to their race or their gender or their orientation or whatever the case is. Obama was that guy who built this coalition of, okay, all the, minorities of the world, all the women, things of that nature. We share this bond of, feeling as though we are, hurt by the systems that be, and we're going to fight against it with hope and such and so forth. For a time that did work, but you're starting to see a different kind of movement arise that is really not so much to do with intersectionality and identity politics, right? And I made this note, and I saw a great example when the United Healthcare CEO was shot and killed, right? Irrespective of the fact that a human being was shot and killed, you had people from both sides of the aisle, Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, liberals, whatever you want to call them, come out and say, hey, the healthcare system is terrible and it has screwed me over for years and years and years. It wasn't about, I'm from the south of Alabama or I'm from upstate New York. That now brings me to a character like Zoran Mamdani, which in my opinion I've pretty accurately predicted as someone like his stature and his demeanor would pop up. Now, full disclaimer, I don't think he's a terrible person or his attitudes or he's trying to maliciously screw over the city of New York. Rather, I think he's just more so a byproduct of this movement, similar to that of Trump being a byproduct of the populism after the Obama era of the quote-unquote silent majority feeling like they haven't been spoken to. This is another crowd of people who haven't felt like they've been spoken to in such quite a while. But, Zoran Mamdani, I kind of label myself as a champagne socialist, someone who says, oh, I know what it's like to be, struggling in the third world countries and this country is screwed over this and that people. I just find it kind of hypocritical when your family and you yourself have benefited nothing greatly from the services and the attitudes of this country that have helped so many people like myself and my family to rise through the ranks. So it is kind of hypocritical. Yes, you can criticize America all you want. I'm not talking about your free speech rights, but obviously free speech does not mean free of criticism. And I wouldn't also say that you can't criticize America at all. Of course you can. There are many things that can be fixed. But to say that this system is completely and utterly, hasn't worked or it needs to be destroyed and rebuilt from the ground up is kind of silly. Now, Mamdani, a little bit background about him. Both of his parents are very affluent, very successful, and so is he. His mother is a very successful director, and his father is a very successful professor at an Ivy League school. That kind of just goes to show, not only is, he's from an affluent background, of course, but just it goes to show that this country, keeps on its promises. It's not perfect. We are always going to a perfect union, but it's helped so many people like Mamdani's parents reap the benefits, and to their benefit, to their pleasure, they do deserve those great things. I'm not criticizing that, of course. But, we talk about a lot of these policies that get brought up by Mamdani. Things like rent control, rent freezes, or defunding the police, or universal basic income, or, education reform, or anti-corporations, or his most controversial one, of course, is making the grocery stores publicly owned by the government, the city government. I think it's just all facetious. I think it's all it screams a bell of this guy might not look like Trump, this guy might not sound like Trump, but he's hitting on the same footsteps as Trump in the sense where he's talking to this demographic of people who have felt unheard and unrepresented, and he's coming to the area with this platform that's very easy to grasp and very easy to join this movement of, these are the powers that be. I'm going to blame the institutions. That was Trump's whole thing in 2016: drain the swamp, drain the swamp. If you mess around with those words and really extract and boil down what their meaning is, it's the same thing as mamdani. You're fighting this idea of populism with populism, this political rhetoric of I'm fighting for the common man, when in reality most people who are claiming to be fighting for the common man are, elitists and people of higher influence themselves. You know, but like I said before, I do not think Zoran Mamdani is a malicious person, or he wants to screw over the city of New York. And honestly, nor do I think Donald Trump. But there are policies that I can look at any candidate and say, hey, look, hey, maybe you have the right intentions in mind. Hey, maybe this might just be a power grab or a sheer numbers game of how do I influence the most people, things of that nature. And now going back to this idea of identity politics, in 2024, I made huge note that the majority of Hispanic men voted for Donald Trump, the majority of Hispanic men. And you had rising African American numbers and Asian numbers and all sorts of minorities switching over and voting Republican for the first time, after a loyalty, so to speak, to this liberal intersectionality that Obama championed. Unfortunately, maybe because it's social media or this idea of isolation, everybody's definitely some sort of level of depression these days. Social media has just, exacerbated that, especially with the rise of, small tweets. Nobody cares to read the entire big beautiful bill, for example. I mean, why would they? It's much more easier just to read a tweet that says, hey, look, your taxes are going to go down, or hey, look, your health care is going to go up, or hey, look, this and that and that and this. The nuance in the American politic is going away and away, and you're starting to see that within your own politicians to say, hey, look, I'm just promoting these very simple and easy, um, policies to grab onto. And most notably, Zoran Mamdani, his voter base in the primary, at least, was mostly white, affluent people, rather than minorities that were in the 2010s very staunch supporters of the Democrat and liberal cause. So I think this is all underneath the fact that you had a Democrat Party that was very scrambled and puzzled after the 2024 election about where to go. Should we continue with moderatism to, appeal to those people who only chose Trump out of the whole lesser of the two evils thing, or should we go towards a more progressive route? And while we're having these conversations, as these Democrats do, someone like Zoran Mamdani is perfectly able to just capture an audience and, say whatever. I mentioned this before, but the classic liberal thing is look at these corporations that are screwing you over. I'm going to fix them. I'm going to bust them. Look at these billionaires, yada, yada, yada. And then the Republican argument is, hey, look at this big government. Look how big this government is. Look at these nasty politicians, draining the swamp, whatever. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to clear out the swamp. When in reality, the swamp or these politicians, as well, or the big government, as well as the corporations or big business billionaires or whatever, are on the same team. And so as long as the rhetoric is, us versus the people above us, whatever hierarchy you want to look at, or excuse me, us versus each other, right? That's the rhetoric of these populists. Is like, man, we'd have it so good if only this group, the opposing side, would just listen to what we said, and they're screwing over our country or whatever the case is. As long as that fight happens, and as long as you can point at certain people like Elon Musk or Bernie Sanders, name your celebrity politician, the real people in the background are the ones who are still keeping their jobs, still keeping their influence, and yeah, that's kind of it. To close thoughts, I just want to say that, criticizing America should not be on the different end of loving America, right? You should be able to criticize America out of love, right? Not out of this idea of just tearing the whole system down. You want to see the country do good. You want to see, people living their American dream, so to speak, whatever that means these days. But yeah, I think Zoran Mamdani is only the beginning, and this movement is going to grow and grow and grow, and maybe that'll land someone in 28. But that's up to time, I guess. Thank you for watching.